Annalise was introduced to me by our good friend Chase Damiano, who is a Sidebar member. Um, Both Chase and Annalise live in Bend, which I was just telling her this morning I have to get there because I hear it's so beautiful, and I have so many good friends who live in Bend. So I think I think we should run a Sidebar supper club or dinner when I'm there. But Annalise has been a long time, I don't know, 15, 20 plus years, executive coach, facilitator. She's worked at a number of different iconic companies, but then has also been off on her own, independently coaching and doing group facilitation. So maybe one of these days we're going to see her in Sidebar as a future Sidebar facilitator. But
Hey.
when Annalise and I connected a couple months ago, we hit it off fabulously, and I'm so excited to hear from her. She has immense wisdom to share. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to you, Annalise, to share more about yourself and then get us started. And I'm going to warn everybody now that I think we will have breakouts, but please don't leave. Annalise has amazing content, and the breakouts are going to be easy. It's going to be like one-on-one conversations. So,
Yes.
okay, but
I love it. Aha. Thank you so much. Yes, the public service announcement of this workshop, maybe we should have even put in the description, is that we will have breakouts. And I know that that can feel not what you intended maybe for your hour. So just do the internal work needed to get yourself prepared for that. And I trust that we'll have exactly who we need in every breakout. So, as Ha said, I'm an executive coach and I'm a leadership advisor. And I've been doing this work for the past decade. And I came to this work as within the formal training as a psychotherapist. And I was working in the Bay Area in my licensure process. And I had this really incredible opportunity to start coaching. I was recruited into a couple startups, curious about my skill set and its applicability in the corporate context. And I really haven't looked back. What I found as I came into this work was that folks were spending so much time working, and so much of their identity and their fulfillment was coming from this craft that they were honing and putting into the world. And yet, we didn't necessarily have all the skills and tools to support them in relating to their work and relating to others in the most generative and healthy way. And so much of my work is focused on coaching folks in the interpersonal dynamics at work. And how do you not only be technically incredibly skillful, but how are you relationally skillful? And how does that in itself uplevel the performance of a team and an entire organization? What really matters to me about our hour together, now 53 minutes, and I think if we all do this the right way, we should wrap 5 minutes early. So, 48 at this point, is that first of all, this feels super spacious to you. I never want time that folks put aside to be with me to feel rushed or pressured. So that this is a really spacious time that we get to be together and nourishing in a way. And that you leave with the skill of repair, of how to work with relational debt in a team with confidence of like, oh, I know. Oh, we have a little rupture. Oh, we had a little something happen there. Or maybe we had a big something happen there, but you have that internal confidence of how to handle it. And this isn't simply a one-to-one skill. I work with the relational debt at more of a systemic level when I'm coaching leadership teams and looking at the ways that the very systems they've designed in their organizations may be contributing to relational debt or may give like a protective buffer against it. So we'll also dip in at the end towards what are the systemic conditions you all are creating or could create to alleviate some of this relational debt. And with that, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to dive in. All right, there we go. So, where I want us to just land first is this concept that rupture is inevitable, repair is not. And the intent here is to really just settle into this reality that humans working with other humans inevitably are going to, if we think of the relationship kind of being intact and as a whole, there will inevitably be a rupture. That's just what it is to be with another human on the planet. Um, but what isn't a given is that those humans can take when there's a rupture or a break in the relationship and put it back together. That they have the skills to, oh, we're disconnected. I've done something that's impacted you, you've done something that's impacted me, and I want to get into kind of a more right relationship with you again. The reality here is that just like in building products and writing software, you're not going for zero technical debt. That's not the goal here. What we recognize though with technical debt is that you will pay for it in some way. Like, and are you willing to be a part of that transaction? And you will have to service that debt at some point. And the same is true for relational debt. That my goal with teams is not that no relational debt is ever accumulated, because they wouldn't do anything then. We would absolutely get nothing done. We wouldn't be innovative. We wouldn't push limits because we'd just be so concerned with staying safe in the relationship. And that is not where humans thrive. Humans thrive when we can be in relationship with one another and trust that we all have the skills to keep these relationships healthy and vibrant. So what does relational debt look like? This is really simple, okay? And there's ways that we could take this and make it much more complex and intricate, but for the spirit of today's time being spacious and accessible, what we're looking at here is that we take shortcuts in relationships, we accumulate a relational debt, and then there is an impact over time. What's available to you in that relationship starts to shift. And what this can look like, just a couple of examples here, is canceling one-on-ones without any context, or even with context, but it's always something that's more important than that person apparently that you had that one-on with. Withholding feedback. I've had the year of feedback, and I kind of always think that this is going to go away. Like maybe we'll stop talking about feedback. Like maybe we've had the book written. Kim Scott dealt with it for us. Like we are done with the feedback conversation. And this year, apparently, we're definitely not done with it. And I was like kind of noticing in some of the systems I was working in that there's like this like stockpiling of feedback that was happening. And this need to start, and with that like that lack of feedback being provided, this like the relationships getting more brittle and the performance starting to lag because people weren't really working with reality, right? They're working with this perception of what things could be, but really wasn't. They don't really know where they stand. And then dominating collaboration is another one of these. I see this often when I'm brought in to, sometimes I get to play this really fun role of being a bit of a mediator in organizations where I get to help different teams start working more productively together. I'll work with co-founders at times, maybe a head of eng and a head of product that just, there's just so much friction and oftentimes so much relational debt. And over time, you start to accrue this debt with one another that if you don't have the skills to make not only that debt, make that implicit explicit, and then to repair it or to pay it down, you're going to see that lag not only impact the way you feel when you work with other people, but it's also going to impact performance. And when I've started to talk about this as relational debt, was in the last like 2 years, I had some really interesting conversations with folks where I was encountering a lot more resistance to the work, this type of work of relational health, coaching, interpersonal dynamics. And a major concern that was surfaced to me was kind of said in a couple different ways, but one of them would be like, is this really the most important thing for us to be talking about or working on? Like, does this really matter that much? Another sentiment that would come forward is like, if we just focus on creating killer products, this isn't going to matter to folks. And then the last one being like, this is just going to distract. And what I would, out of true care for these clients and these companies, let them know, is that it is already impacting your teams. It is already impacting your products. This lag that is happening because of this relational debt, you just get to decide if you want to service it or not. And that's totally a reasonable question to ask yourself. Is this worth my servicing? For most folks, though, the answer ends up being yes, it is. And then the question is, okay, well, then how do we do it? This is what repair looks like. So when you're looking at, you've recognized that, oh, and this is oftentimes unintentional. Oh, I've impacted someone in a way that I did not intend to. Or maybe it was intentional. Maybe it was like, I'm a little bit over sales continuing to say that we have things that we don't have, or asking for unrealistic timelines. And you have just been ignoring that Slack channel for a certain amount of time. Like, it may be a little bit more overt than subvert. But when you recognize that, okay, I actually want to deal with this, I actually think that I need to start making some repairs and paying down this relational debt. There's a process that you can walk through that will support you in doing this. I believe that repair is the core skill needed for leaders who want to maintain relational health. And when you can repair proactively, you build resilience, trust, and there's also a speediness that happens. And what it looks like is that as you become more skillful at first acknowledging that relational debt is accruing or that a rupture has occurred, you are quicker to address it. And I was facilitating a session, and right before my eyes, this was more of a systems coaching. There was a little rupture that took place between the two people. And I kind of noticed it. I think we all kind of noticed, like, ooh, that landed a little bit harsh, or, oh, that kind of came out of nowhere. This might feel like, a bit of a pile on. And then what I observed in this leader was, not only did they notice it, they're like, oh, that wasn't what I intended. Let's just quickly check base. That wasn't my intention, what I just said there. Can we repair here? Can we talk about this? There was such a speed to it. And what I thought about was like, oh, if this had gone unaddressed, which is, I think I'd say, is more often how it goes before leaders get these skills. There's all sorts of other conversations that don't go as well. There's all sorts of other meetings that aren't as effective because there's this relational debt that's weighing down the system. So these are the steps to repair. And I have all of this for you all at the end. So, and I know there's every kind of AI recording this too. So what am I even saying? I sound like I'm in 2001. Like, you've all got it. I know. So, and of course, 6 steps is always a great indicator that you have every single step listed here. The first part of addressing relational debt and practicing repair is to actually notice it. And there's a little bit of a prompt or an example below. I noticed something was off, or I noticed that after I shared that we were making this decision, you didn't engage in the rest of the meeting, however that might be. And then you can own it. I want to let you know that just because you take ownership of your impact does not mean you're taking ownership of someone else's part. That is not what is happening here. You're owning your part. So for this person, I recognize that when I had said that we'd come to this decision, you didn't engage for the rest of the meeting. And my part in that was that I did not consult your team or you before moving ahead with this decision. And then you ask them, this is step 3. This is empathic attunement. This is you asking them to let you into their world and for you attuning to it. So how did that land for you? What was that like when you heard that we were going to go in this direction and I hadn't consulted with you? Okay. The person shares. Maybe they share for a long time. The space between 3 and 4 could look like maybe 5 minutes. It could also probably look like maybe a little bit longer than that, maybe even a couple conversations. And then we go towards verbal repair, articulating right then, I hear you. I hear you that it was really frustrating that we didn't come to your team and ask for their requirements. And that wasn't okay. Sometimes, maybe though, something else happened here. So for this example, that wasn't okay. But it could be, I hear you. Us not coming to you and asking those requirements sounds like it made you feel unconsidered and that your team's opinions were not important. And these were the reasons why we chose to move that quickly. Then we go to reconnection. And this is an important step because this is asserting with the individual what your intention is for that relationship. You matter to me, or this relationship between our teams really matters to me. I want us to work well together. I want us to be a healthy and vibrant system. Are you open to resetting, or are you ready for us to move forward? Next time I will, or my commitment to you is this. And letting that person know you're not simply saying that you regret the action that you took, but you're letting them know that you're committed to a different type of future with that person. And this is where repair is so different than other ways that we can be of like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry about that, or oh yeah, that wasn't what I meant. This is much more intentional. And over time, teams that are able to engage in this kind of repair, and it can get more efficient between all of you, that they do it more quickly and more skillfully. And they also start to trust the other person's intent of like, oh, maybe when Haas said that thing, she didn't maybe mean it that way. I'm going to check in with her and make sure that we're good. Or I'm going to check in and make sure there's not a repair for us to make there. And this is another example of how to say it. I've already walked you through this, but hey, I've been reflecting on how that last interaction went. I realize I may have cut you off, and I want to acknowledge that. It matters to me that we work well together, and I'd love to reset if you're open to it. And you know what? And sometimes when I'll be working with a client who's preparing for this time of conversation, and one of their fears is like, well, what if the person just like doesn't even remember or doesn't matter to them? And I'm like, well, great. Well, first of all, like that conversation just got a lot shorter. And it's still demonstrating a way of being in relationship that person can trust you even more of like, oh, wow, Jake, I didn't even really notice that Jake cut me off in that conversation. And yet he came and he checked it out with me. Like, Jake is so cool. What a great dude, keeping track of that. The next part of this is recognizing that when you're in relationship with someone, rupture and repair is just part of the stages of a relationship. This is just how it goes. And I would kind of think about it is that you'll probably start to you'll be connected with someone, or you have been in reconnection, and then some tension might start to accumulate. Probably say here's where you see that relational debt starting to build. There's a rupture, something happens, generally observable, maybe in a way of like, oh, like they didn't attend this, or they said that, or something that indicates to you like, okay, there's something off between us. The option then is to engage in some reflection, self-reflection of maybe how did I contribute to that rupture? And then seeking for repair and reconnection. We're going to get to our first place of reflection as a group. And just so you know, after this reflection, we're going to pop into some breakout rooms. But this is your opportunity to take inventory of the relational debt you might be carrying. So what you see here, and you can draw this, I'm sure all of you have your arts and crafts materials right beside you. So you can just pull out the colored pencils, or you can just make a list on your notes, whatever is easiest for you. But write down these different categories of relationships that you're holding, or perhaps the ones that are most relevant to you. And just take 1-2 minutes and indicate for each one, what level of relational debt do you believe is there? Maybe you can work on percentages, whatever's going to kind of land for you in the reflection, but where might there be some debt between you and your boss, your direct reports, peers? I see this happening so consistently because sometimes with our peers, we don't necessarily feel some of the same permission or have the same scaffolding around the relationship to make even these conversations more possible. Any kind of senior stakeholders, that have really a stake in the work that you're doing, but maybe aren't the person you're reporting to, and cross-functional partners. So just taking a moment there and reflecting on what kind of relational debt you might be carrying. And then for those categories, note one action or inaction that may be contributing to that. So maybe you have a direct report that is a rock star, and though you cancel that one-on-one pretty frequently because they're a rock star, and you just kind of assume they've got it. Or maybe there was a peer that you have had some frustration with in how their team has been interacting with yours that you haven't addressed with them, but that's led you to disengage from the relationship, maybe withdraw a bit, not offer as much to that person in your relationship. So just take a look at what action or inaction may have contributed there. And for some of us, we'll find tendencies that we have that contribute to our relational debt. There's usually three kind of tendencies I see in leaders that create relational debt for them. One of them is when they're trying to be too pleasing, that they've withheld perspectives, thoughts, feelings from folks because they think that they're creating a space of belonging and harmony. And really, they're just being pleasing and complying. Another way we can contribute to relational debt is by being really controlling and by kind of telling ourselves the story and others that if we're not doing it, then it's probably not being done right. Or we just have to get in there and get this over the line because the client needs it. And then another tendency, so you have like your kind of pleasing tendencies, you have your controlling, and then you can kind of have some distancing tendencies where you just are a bit detached and aloof with folks. You don't give them much, you also don't ask much from them. But those are some various ways that we can start to accrue relational debt with folks. I'm going to give you about maybe just 30 more seconds here. And then we're going to go into our breakout rooms. And what I'd love to prioritize in this breakout room is that we make sure our folks with cameras on are with folks with cameras on, just because I think we know that Jake and Gary and Teresa and Elizabeth, I think they'll definitely be in the breakout room. Oh, and Sarah, there we go. So let's make sure we've got them with buddies that we know are. Oh, eat away, Sarah, go for it, okay? And maybe this actually is your moment. If you want to be in a breakout room, come forth for sure, that you're like, yes, Annalise, I can't wait to go into a breakout room. There
Okay,
we
so
are.
I don't know if I know how to do that, but I'm gonna
Okay.
try. And then if you happen to be in a room by yourself with a recording bot or with somebody who is off camera and isn't paying attention, come back into the main room. I'll find another room for you. So I'm gonna try this now. I'm gonna put everybody into, I think, 7 or so breakout rooms. Um,
Yes.
Oh, you know what? Okay, this is so crazy. I am not logged into the right Zoom account, so I have to exit and come back in. So, Annalise,
Oh,
why don't you
perfect.
do something in the main room? I'm gonna exit,
Sure.
come back
I'm going to give
in.
instructions. I'm going to give the instructions. So you
Okay,
take your
so I'm
time,
gonna
huh?
come back in 1 minute, but keep going, and I'll be back
So
in.
relatable. Okay. So, and this is so classic in me running a workshop. I always send people into the breakout rooms just with giving them the minimalist of instructions. So when you're in your breakout room, this is what you're going to talk about. So let's get back there. Okay. So which category of relationship has meaningful debt? So that's the first one you're going to share with one another of like, okay, my direct reports were carrying something here, or my boss and I had a brutal performance review that we have not talked about. So whatever that might be. What actions or inactions have you contributed? Okay, so emphasis on the you. This is about what have you done to contribute to your relational debt? And then what is the impact of that debt? Okay, You don't need to bare your soul here. I think we can all talk about this at like a certain level that we'll probably feel quite comfortable. But what you're looking for here is to start identifying, oh, like what area of my relationships may need some attention? And then what behaviors do I exhibit? Oftentimes we have patterns around here that contribute to this debt. Okay. So you're going to go into your breakout rooms. You're going to be with just one buddy, so a dyad, and you're going to have about, let's say, about 3 minutes each to share, and then you'll switch and come back. A couple of rules of breakout rooms. We don't need to get into the story. We don't need to get too deep down into this. We're really just answering these questions, and I want both of you to have the opportunity to share, to hear from one another. So just be mindful of that time. Okay, so 3 minutes each, and then you switch. Okay, Ha, we ready to go? Are we on our way? Perfect, thank you.
I'm going to just see who's in a room by themselves. Move to room 5. Okay. Oh. Annalise, you're with Jake. Do you want me to move Jake?
Okay, let's, I can go with Jake. Do you want me to go with Jake?
Yeah, why
Okay,
not?
go. Yeah,
Okay.
flip
Yeah.
me over.
Okay. Okay, so let me move you. Move you, Annalise. I think you.
Oh, Jake just keep, hey, Jake,
Okay.
I'm gonna come. So sorry. Okay.
Well, let's see. So,
See.
do you have the option to join a breakout room, Annalise? Or why don't we just stay here in the main room
Sure,
and
let's do
you
it. Okay. This AI note taker bill,
okay,
are
I
we
can boot it.
able?
I
Yeah, can you
think I
just
can
mute it
boot it.
just to make sure
Yeah.
that I just want if Jake shares
Yeah.
so that it feels good. Okay. Aha, and Jake and me. Yay. Who wants to go first? Which category of relationship has some meaningful debt, do you think?
I think it's always like cross-functional peers. But Jake, I'm gonna let you speak.
Oh yeah, it's cross-functional for sure. Yeah, like
Okay.
all of it is there. Like I've reserved 5% for direct and for boss, just because I'm sure I'm blind to something. But most of it is cross-functional, and a lot of it I think stems from product used to be more forceful in the company. And we had to like literally control behaviors in sales, marketing, many other functions. But we have been like stepping back because they brought in adult leadership to quote unquote manage those functions. And I think I went overboard there in terms of letting things go.
Mm.
And as a result, there are some unresolved issues specifically between sales and marketing. And they're looking to me like two kids to parent, like, hey, can you like solve this problem? I'm like, I'm not sure I need to. I think you guys need to work this out. You have a quota to hit. You got to generate so many leads. If you need something specific where I need input. So that's been my approach so far. And frankly,
Mhm.
it's not working.
It's not working. Okay.
It's better than it was, but it's not as good as it could be. And the management is involved, and management says they want to talk to their folks. And anyway, but that's kind of where there's that conflict, some debt that needs to be resolved. And I feel like I do need to take a more proactive role to help unclog that process.
Mhm. Great. And it sounds like, so it's like the action or inaction, kind of trying to like empower them to handle it themselves, just being really directed, like, this is what our objectives are, this is what we need to hit, and hoping, hoping that that's going to happen.
Right.
And now you're like, no,
Yeah.
no,
Hope
they're
it's not
not.
an effective strategy, no.
Yeah, that's nice. I'm gonna add that to this talk, Jake. Good.
It's
Yeah.
not my quote. I stole it because she can't remember where.
Yeah, yeah. I'll definitely put Jake Shapiro up underneath it. Don't you worry.
Great.
Aha, what do you think for you like contributes to that relational
Yeah.
debt?
Um, I would say that I have a very direct style, which lands with some people, and doesn't land so well with others. It works really, really well with the founders and CEOs I work with. But maybe they're directs or, team, a little bit more junior team members, they can somewhat be taken aback,
Mhm.
a direct approach. And so, yeah. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of well, and it's also with I think with cross-functional too, whenever there's like a little bit more distance, there's like a little bit more space for things to go wrong or to be interpreted in a different way. When you work really closely with someone, it's like, oh, I know what Ha meant by that. Or
yeah,
or you don't even get the offense because you're like, no, Ha's just telling us what it is, like it is. That's fine. We love that. So yeah, I think that is, and there's an extra level of care then that comes with those relationships because when they stop working well, they can massively impede progress in that way.
sure. Yeah.
So
Well,
great.
like in my case, to that point, I think what exacerbates the problem is the constant revolving door management sales marketing. So the players are changing as the conflict persists.
Hmm.
So the emotional debt is, sorry, not emotional, but
Yeah, the
what you
relational.
call relational debt is it's almost institutional at this point.
Yes. Well, and then when you have this relational debt that's like carrying over, like the legacy debt.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Doesn't the metaphor just keep working and working for us? I love it. Aha, do you want to give the breakout rooms a little warning? Maybe just let them know, or do they
Yeah, what
know?
I did was I did send a broadcast a couple minutes ago saying switch within 1 minute if you haven't already.
You're the best, huh? Look at you.
I'm a
So
pro. I'm a pro.
skillful. You are a
Yeah.
pro.
And then I was gonna close them off like around 12:37, and then around 12:36, I was gonna just send a note saying
Perfect.
closing the breakout rooms in a minute,
Look,
which is right around
this
now.
is, I want Ha with me whenever I'm doing this.
Right.
This
I'm
is
a pro.
luxury. Someone managing those broadcasts. It's
Yeah,
Okay.
so
great.
I have
I'm
one
gonna
more for
let
you, I
you
guess,
know.
if there's a minute. But when I just started this gig, there's a lady on my team. I found out later, a year later, that initially, like, I majorly intimidated her, and I was completely blind to it. Like, she
Mhm.
didn't say anything, I didn't notice it, and that's part of like the reason I made the comment. Just noticing that there's a problem is not always easy, right? Um,
Yes.
so like a year later, I found out that there was a problem there, and by the time I found out about it, the problem was already resolved. She gotten over it, and we have good working relationship, whatever.
Great.
But
Good.
it's
Yeah.
like, how do you see those things? Like, some people are so good at seeing,
Yeah.
listening things, and for some of us, it's like, it's hard. It's hard.
It is hard because it's also, I think with that example, it's really great too, is like recognizing what's yours to identify and what's someone else's to
Mm,
identify, right? Like, because it's not all yours, right?
right.
And there's also a place for us, and this is a little bit more welcome back, everybody. There's also a reality of recognizing that everyone is an adult and is choosing to be there and to work there. And that's also then taking responsibility for your experience. So if you're experiencing, like if you have experienced a rupture with someone, that's also your responsibility to bring it forward. So
Right.
don't want, we do not take on relational debt that is not ours. We manage ours. Okay, welcome back. Hello. Welcome back. Okay, so how was that? Was that okay? I'll put in the chat. No one likes an open question to a semi-full Zoom room. Okay, so were there any themes or anything like kind of similarities between you and your partner that you can pop into the chat? Either like a group or maybe an action or inaction. You
Or
can
come
pop
off
that in the,
mute.
oh, go ahead.
Or come off mute.
Yeah, okay, great, good.
I'll share kind of thoughts is at least I was connected with Joe, and I feel like one of the themes we didn't talk about, but has come up a lot in my life, is just the sense of assumptions and assuming that things are going to go a certain way, or yeah, that tends to kind of taint the action that comes afterwards.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Elizabeth. What else?
I'll share maybe something that we haven't talked about yet, but I was paired with Teresa, and we kind of landed in the same spot about um, being mindful about what we're talking about here, being really self-aware, but working with people or having managers or bosses that either don't care or don't have this skill set. So curious if that came up for anyone else, and what advice or what you do in that situation.
That's great. Yeah. I'm sure there's perspectives here that I'd love to surface first. Does anyone have a thought, or did you all have a thought of how you approach that when it's like maybe not a priority or not a skill that is necessarily with that person?
I've had scenarios in the past where I've had a boss that doesn't quite understand or value what my team did. And what I've just learned over the years is it'll never be their priority, but you got to kind of in some ways kind of force it onto them over and over again until you can see if it resonates with them. And then at a certain point, I've used it as a litmus test of at a certain point of no matter kind of what you do, kind of the takes you have, sometimes it's a good time. That's a good signal to move on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks, Joe.
Well, follow-up question to Jacqueline. I'm wondering, does that person even know there's a problem?
No, I think that's part of the problem. They just like lack the self-awareness around like people management in general. And so like this idea of I'm going to bring up this difficult conversation, or the idea that they're canceling a one-on-one without, understanding the impact of that, and kind of like having I'm sure you can kind of raise it. And I've given feedback around this topic before to this person, but yeah, when you just know it's not in their toolbox and you're not sure if they want to add this skill set.
Yeah, that can definitely feel like a risk of like, well, first of all, is it worth potentially some of the social capital that might be could be diminished through this? And I think there are ways to understand someone's interest in these types of conversations, even simply to say like, I'd like to have a conversation with you about the impact of XYZ. Are you open to that? And rarely, well, actually, I've had a couple of folks who say to the person, no, I'm not interested in that. And I actually really appreciate that because it's just honest. And then we're not pretending that we're having some sort of conversation, but letting them opt in. Another way to pre-frame it, Jacqueline, is setting your intention of what this conversation is in service of. Hey, I'm so excited about the work our teams are doing together. And I'm observing a dynamic between them that I'd love to address with you. Can we get some time for that? Of like really grounding this of like, what is this in service of, and I had a situation where I was kind of playing a mediation role, but I was also doing a significant amount of team coaching. And I came in to work with two cross-functional groups that were really struggling on a project, and just roadblock after roadblock and delays, and just kind of everything was going wrong that could go wrong. And of course, the other team was absolutely responsible for it. Like it was a lot of blame, a lot of like, we wouldn't have been here this way. And what I observed during the time there is that what became clear as we like further processed what had happened. And I did like we kind of did like a 360 of the project, of like what's going on here, where are we seeing this? And the majority of the issues was coming down to the interpersonal dynamics between the teams. These are smart, capable folks doing this work, but the relational debt that was accumulating over time was having serious impacts on the company's progress and their success, just from a pure capitalism perspective. And so sometimes even grounding it that way of like, we're losing velocity on this project, and as much as this is going to be challenging for us to address, we need to look at the relationship between the two teams, or we need to address this relational dynamic in order for this. And that can create some opening for folks if they can see like, oh, this is how it serves the success of this project, company, whatever. And sometimes people are not up for these types of conversations, and it is totally fine then to choose to not to have them. That is also can be a perfectly reasonable choice there. Any other? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So something that came up in my conversation with Sarah was something that I resonated with, something that resonated with me as well, which is there's relationship that can occur between two parties. However, that relationship debt can be reduced or exasperated in some cases by a third party. Let's say a leader who we're reporting to is unfortunately exasperating and perhaps increasing the amount of relationship debt that might be occurring between myself and a direct report. And how, in that case, I mean, how it becomes a challenge because now you start to have relationship debt on two different relationships that you have to start thinking through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And is the challenging part of it, Kim, walk me through, it's like the part that gets, is it just like the complexity of it? Of like, well, when you go past me and you talk to my direct report and tell them this, then this happens. Like, what is it about that starts to feel extra tricky there?
For me, I had my own experience that was very
Yeah.
close to what resonated with what Sarah said, but I don't want to put words in Sarah's mouth. I don't know, Sarah, if you want to add on to that.
Yeah, I think it's challenging when you come into new roles and there's already debt, right, that you're not even aware of, right? There could be people that apply for that job, didn't get it, right? There's that type of debt. People, team members, if you have direct reports, they actually sign up to work for this VP and now they're working for you. And if management is not giving you the ability to manage and lead your team, that's just a strained relationship, right? There's not boundaries around management, respect, and they're just kind of going around you. There's just so much debt, and it's kind of trapping you in a box to be able to do well because there's things that haven't been managed prior to you getting there, and then they can just get exacerbated.
Yeah, this came up in our breakout too of like all this legacy debt coming along. You're like, this wasn't even mine. I didn't even do this, and yet here I am holding it. And I think there's another skill here that comes in where kind of two skills I'd think about. Speaking inarguably of what you're observing. And so when you speak inarguably to dynamic you're seeing in an organization, what that means that we strip the judgment out of it. Instead of saying these two teams are, this team, let's go this way. This team is like completely incompetent. They cannot get anything done. Judgment, judgment, judgment. Another way to talk about this, to start raising this issue, is to speak inarguably, and that is to say what is absolutely observable. What can a video, what could we capture on a camera that we would know is here? It's like, you know what I'm noticing is that, so speaking arguably, I'm noticing that this team has been unable to deliver on timelines since I was hired into this role. I'm also observing that this team has not had the history of consistent performance reviews or any kind of performance support. I'd like to suggest XYZ, where we're not only talking about like making the story around the behavior, but we're just surfacing we're surfacing what is inarguable about it. Another skill that I look at here is making just articulating what's going on, which you just did, Sarah, of like, what are we seeing in the team? What are we seeing in the system? And what I hear from you, Sarah, is like, this is a bit more of like a systemic issue than a Sarah issue, probably of like that you, and you didn't say it was a Sarah issue, but like, oftentimes with my clients, what we see is like, what they're experiencing in their day-to-day and in their team's day-to-day is simply the system being revealed, that this system has been designed to create this sort of relational debt, which we're going to get to in a couple minutes. And so when you can speak to it that way, that also can really depersonalize it in there. And I know that this is like much more complex than I'm necessarily can give it time for, but totally open to continuing this conversation after too, in different ways. I'm going to move us on to repair, and so we can end on time. So when we look at stepping into this repair process, what you're really looking to achieve through this is that you have explicitly stated what you are owning in relationship to the rupture. This is what I own. This is what I want to take responsibility for between us. And then checking in with them. How did that land for you? What's coming up for you around this? And letting that person share. And as they share, kind of over here in step 3 in empathic attunement, this seems to be important, not engaging in another rupture. So letting the person share. Interesting. Tell me more. What else? Okay, I appreciate you sharing that with me. And then giving that verbal repair and affirmation oftentimes is here of like, I hear you. That wasn't okay. I hear you. It was really hard that you were told you would be the next in line for the promotion and you didn't receive it. I get that. And then confirming and asserting to that person that you are committed to having a certain type of relationship with them moving forward. We're going to do this a little bit briefly, and then we're going to give a little bit of time for questions, and then we'll, while you get some feedback, we're going to talk about what it would look like to try a repair with someone. And to Teresa's point earlier, let's choose the people that would like be open to having a like that you can think of, like maybe they're like kind of thinking of circles of receptivity. Who might be someone that you have some relational debt with and that you think it would be, it would make sense to try to facilitate this kind of conversation with. It's always risky. It's always risky to own your behavior and to show that you're not perfect. I feel this every day as this like feeling sometimes of like, oh, like if I say that I know I didn't do this the right way, or I could have done this better, then that person's going to find out I'm not perfect. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is that the goal, to be perfect? Or is the goal to be in generative and productive relationships with folks, And I think my kids are like the best mirrors for this right now. You can imagine what it can be like to have me as a mother, but we talk about a lot of like, oh, are we feeling a little bit disconnected right now? How can we get reconnected together? And they do this the best. I notice that they are just so quick to notice if there's like, of course, my nervous system, their nervous system, but this like notice disconnection between us and then seek to become connected. Or I notice that as well. This is literally how we're wired, is to be attuning to this cycle of we rupture and then we repair and then we reconnect and we build this skillfulness over time. And so thinking about as we head out from here and as we wrap up in these moments, who might you want to initiate a conversation of repair with? And what might that sound like? I'm going to give you just like a moment just to write that down. We're not going to go to breakout rooms again, just for our time. And then so just write that down. Like maybe who's the person? What might a repair sound like? And then I think the question that you'd respond to in the chat is, what are the odds of you having this conversation on a scale, like are we like on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the likelihood that you would initiate the conversation? I'll just give you a moment there. What are our odds, folks? Do we have a 10 out, like 100% chance, maybe 90? I think anything over 50, I'll be delighted to see. Not to lead the crowd too much, but I'll keep an eye on the chat for those. Let's see, 95%, Jake Shapiro coming in. Okay. Jake, I'd love for you to drop me a note and let me know how that goes. 80, I like 80. Teresa, it is optimistic, but we're going to give some space there. Excellent. Great. Okay, we've got some high numbers there. This is where I'd like to wrap us up, is that your system, as we just kind of talked about with the earlier questions, is working exactly as you designed it to. And there are ways that we can design our systems around work, incentives, norms that will create the conditions that are either more prone to relational debt or have a buffer towards it. And what I see in systems that are really have a great way of maintaining or like servicing their relational debt, they tend to have rhythms of connection in the organization. I think one of the best ways we can pay down relational debt is like, especially in our remote first, is like the times we get folks together in person, offsites, retreats, making sure we're really focusing on the quality of relationship, that we create agreements that are really clear with one another. So much of like the mischief in organizations is when people don't do what they say they were going to do, or people didn't know that they were really supposed to do a certain thing because there was never a great level of clarity around the agreement. And the last thing that I see around systems that are really that are so sturdy and strong when it comes to relational debt is they actually develop the skills, that they give their folks the skills around this. They give them the language even to say like, oh, I have a team that I coached that we were always like, just kind of like the core skill was to always come back to like, the conscious leadership stuff of, are you above or below the line? Or are you articulating what's going on? Or is our agreement as clear as possible? But giving people language for these dynamics so that they can actually work them into their day-to-day. And just to leave you with this is that whatever kind of system you've created, if you have a system that is one to nourish and nurture folks' performance and their well-being, that's the kind of performance you're going to get. If you have a system that is a bit brittle and that it values shortcuts over depth and values efficiency over quality, then oftentimes that's the result of the relationships you're going to see there. And so one thing I would ask as you all leave, just to keep in mind, is like, what is a systemic change that you could implement that would help prevent relational debt? Is there a skill to bring into your team? Is there a new rhythm of connection? Maybe the next offsite you do, you're like, oh, we're just going to pay down relational debt. Like, we're just going to take care of that. But to think about what are the things that are systemically occurring that you can influence. And with that sidebar, this has been a true joy to spend this hour together. I have admired this group from afar, and I was just so delighted to get to be invited in to share space with you. The reflections that we did today, you can feel free to just scan that QR code or just go to Annalise Koltai /sidebar, and you can grab a little worksheet there. You also are all, please grab time with me if you want to talk about this in a little bit more depth. It's what I am on the planet to do, and what I enjoy the most in the world is supporting folks and living and leading with more interpersonal and relational health. And with that, let's go to some brief Q&As, and you can throw up.
Yes,
yours.
I'm going to do that. So I am going to just throw up the, now you can see how many tabs I have open, but I'm going to do the QR code, which collects feedback, and all of you should know how to do this by now. Get out your phones, point the camera to the QR code, share some feedback with us and with Annalise. And we always share all the feedback with our speakers following the event. And I know that they really value feedback because it is a gift. So I'll keep the QR code on the screen while we also take some questions if there are any questions.
Especially as you go into performance review season. I appreciate that, Kristen. Yes.
I think you answered everybody's questions.
That's all there is to it there. It was pretty thorough. Just got to the bottom of that relational debt. I am really grateful for the time, all of you. I know that this is the most valuable resource you have. And so it's not lost on me to spend a little bit with me. I really hope our paths cross again. Thank you so much. This was really a joy.
Yes, it was a great session. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. I think a lot of the advice applies not just to the work setting. I was thinking about all of the personal relationships, my husband, all of that. And so I thank you for the
Yeah.
words, 'cause I
Oh yeah.
feel like I
This-
can start
Oh,
practicing some of it. So
great. Yes. Oh my goodness. If this makes our personal lives better, let's go. This is
yeah.
time well spent. Okay. Be
Awesome.
well
Thank you
all.
so much,
Have a
everyone.
wonderful week.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.